You know how it goes. You walk into a gun shop, see a slick new polymer pistol or a modern long gun under the glass, and before you know it, you're $1,500 deep because every gun influencer online called it the next big thing. You take it home, oil it, rack the action a few times, and feel like you bought ahead of the curve. Then 18 to 24 months later, reality hits. Maybe the hype collapsed. Maybe a major recall made headlines. Or maybe the manufacturer released 6 newer upgraded versions and made your gun look outdated overnight. Now that investment is sitting in the safe, and when you try to trade it, the dealer looks at you like you brought in a used toothbrush. The firearms market in 2026 is moving fast. Between manufacturing problems, shifting regulations, and a used market packed to the ceiling, some well-known guns are losing value hard. Today we're looking at 6 firearms that went from must-have status to used rack trouble almost overnight. This one will irritate Glock loyalists, but the numbers are the numbers. The Glock 19 Gen 5 used to be one of the safest buys in handguns. For years, the Glock 19 was the standard all-purpose polymer pistol. Reliable, simple, easy to maintain, and known for holding value better than most pistols in its class. But the market shifted after aggressive regulations from California, and other states started targeting firearms viewed as easily convertible. Glock responded by phasing out the Gen 3, Gen 4, and Gen 5 lines starting in late 2025. Making room for a redesigned series with internal changes meant to prevent illegal full-auto switches. The second, a manufacturer announces the end of a product line, older models start feeling dated. Mechanically, the Gen 5 Glock 19 is still a solid pistol. It still runs the way a Glock should. The resale problem is oversupply. There are millions of these guns already out there, and with newer versions hitting shelves, a lot of owners are trying to move their Gen 5s at the same time. That's basic supply and demand. Too many pistols, not enough buyers. A gun that once brought around $500 may only pull about $300 on trade now. That's a serious hit, all because the market moved. At number 5 is the Colt CBX Precision bolt action. When Colt, a brand tied forever to revolvers in the 1911, stepped into the modern precision bolt rifle market, some shooters were skeptical, but plenty of collectors were curious. The CBX was promoted as a chassis rifle for regular shooters, aimed at competing with guns like the Ruger Precision Rifle and Bergara B14. It used a flat bottom receiver to help reduce flex and a button-rifled barrel advertised for sub-MOA accuracy right out of the box. The issue was timing and execution. Colt entered a crowded space late, and early rifles carried some production headaches. Shooters reported heavy bolt lift and extraction problems with certain .308 match loads. In precision shooting, a rough bolt cycle costs time and disrupts your position behind the optic. Colt also frustrated long-range shooters with a proprietary-ish magazine setup on some early versions instead of sticking with the industry-standard AICS pattern. That was a hard sell to guys who already had stacks of compatible magazines. By 2026, the CBX had mostly been ignored in favor of companies with stronger bolt gun track records. When a rifle costs over $1,000 but doesn't clearly outperform a $600 Tikka or Bergara, resale value takes a dive. Today, used CBX rifles are showing up close to half their original MSRP. Collectors don't really see them as classic Colts, and precision shooters don't see them as proven long-range rifles. It's a gun stuck between identities, and the price reflects that. At number 4 is Kimber's swing at the micro-compact carry market, the R7 Mako. Kimber made its name with high-end, sharp-looking 1911s, so when it released a polymer-framed, striker-fired subcompact, people paid attention. On paper, the Mako looked strong. It had good capacity, a solid trigger for its class, and an optics-ready co-witness setup that was actually well done. Then the familiar Kimber problem showed up. In early 2022, the R7 Mako was hit with a major recall over a defect in the firing pin safety block. Under certain conditions, the pistol could potentially fire multiple rounds from one trigger pull, or worse, discharge when it should not. For a concealed carry pistol, that kind of safety issue is devastating. Even after the recall fix, the design still felt overbuilt in the wrong areas. The hooded ejection port was different, but it made certain stovepipe malfunctions harder to clear compared with a normal open-top slide like you see on Glock or SIG pistols. By 2026, the carry market has moved on, and the Mako has been left behind. If someone paid $800 for one in 2022, they may only see around $350 on trade today. Buyers remember safety headlines, and in defensive handguns, trust is very hard to win back. Number 3 is the Ruger LCP II. For a long time, this little pistol ruled the pocket gun category. It was the pistol people carried when they said they couldn't carry anything else. But by 2026, the technical floor dropped out from under it. The main issue is capacity, especially after Ruger released the LCP Max. Once Ruger put 12 rounds into almost the same size package while the LCP II held only 6, the older pistol became obsolete almost immediately. The LCP II was always a low-volume pistol. Look at the thin barrel hood, the slide rails, and the overall build, and it's clear this was never meant to be a 10,000-round training gun. Used examples are now coming into shops with frame peening and trigger reset problems from worn springs. On top of that, 380 ACP ammunition has gotten more expensive. That makes people wonder why they're carrying a low-capacity snappy pocket pistol when a Micro 9 can offer more performance at a similar cost per round. On the used market, the LCP II has become a $100 gun in many shops. Dealers are loaded with them because owners traded into the LCP Max or the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. If you bought one expecting it to hold value as a classic Ruger, that ship has sailed. It was replaced by a better version of itself, and in the gun world, that sends resale value straight to the bottom. At number 2 is the original SIG SAUER P365, specifically the early non-optics ready versions. This pistol really did launch the micro-compact revolution, but by 2026 it has been hurt by SIG's own constant upgrade cycle. SIG is the master of incremental variants. The company has released the X, the XL, the Macro, the Fuse, and plenty more. Next to those newer models, the original plain P365 now feels like an old flip phone next to a modern smartphone. Technically, early versions had reports of primer drag and firing pin breakages that spread all over online forums. SIG improved the later production guns, but the legacy reputation stuck to the early models. The bigger problem is optics. We are firmly in the red dot carry era now. A carry pistol without an optics cut feels like a truck without four-wheel drive. Sure, it still works, but buyers do not want to pay premium money for it. Because SIG pushed so many newer models and offered rebates, the used market for the early P365 has collapsed. Owners are trading them in by the thousands for the X Macro, mainly for higher capacity and that integrated compensator. If someone paid $600 for an early P365, a $300 trade value is about the current reality. That is market saturation doing what it does best. At number 1 is the Springfield Hellion, one of the hardest hit resale guns in 2026. This rifle was supposed to be the Taver killer, a civilian version of the Croatian VHS-2 bullpup, giving shooters a compact rifle with a full-length barrel. It looked futuristic, and Springfield marketed it as the next evolution in home defense rifles. But once American shooters actually spent time behind it, the technical problems became hard to ignore. The Hellion's length of pull is famously long, even for shooters with long arms. It can feel like you are reaching across a dining table just to find the grip. Then come the controls. Compared with an AR-15, and even compared with the Taver, the safety selector and bolt release feel unintuitive enough that many experienced shooters gave up after one range session. There were also repeated reports of short stroking with certain budget steel-cased ammunition, which is a bad look for any rifle marketed as a serious use platform. The final hit came when Springfield quietly pulled back support in late 2025 after poor sales. Once a manufacturer stops pushing a platform, parts availability gets rough and resale value drops fast. At that point, you have an orphan gun. If someone spent $2,000 on a Hellion, they may be lucky to get $800 on trade today. It is the perfect example of a hype-driven firearm that failed to deliver on its promises, leaving owners with an expensive, awkward safe queen. So there it is. 6 firearms that went from hype machine favorites to used rack headaches faster than a lot of shooters expected. The firearms market is brutal, and cool factor only lasts until the next recall, redesign, or major innovation shows up. If you've been burned by one of these guns, or if you managed to sell before the floor dropped, drop your experience in the comments. Your story might help another shooter avoid a bad buy. Hit the like button, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. Stay sharp.